Hello, welcome to the stream. This is Michael Wellen, and here I talk about stuff every day just to get out of my head. So, three topics for today: the mate suppression theory, T, and the right and the right. So first off, mate suppression theory. This is a theory of gender dynamics, which is basically doing the rounds over the past, I don't know, week or so. Seems to be picking up steam. It's been picked up by What If Altist, over the various dating video stuff, whatever. If you're not familiar with it, basically the idea is that mate suppression is a way that some females in some species prevent other females from reproducing in order to increase their evolutionary success. So let's put it this way. If you on average have 1.5 kids, but you can push the average of the rest of your population down to 1.0 kids, over time, your population will do better than the other population. So even if you don't produce a bunch of offspring, if you reduce the amount that your competitors produce, you win, basically. So this theory is basically posed as a rationale for various social and cultural forces that motivate women to have less children than they would have otherwise. I think it's bullshit for a few reasons. I think it's a good theory. I mean, I like evolutionary theory, and this one, in some context, could be correct. I don't think it's true in the modern context for a few reasons. First, a lot of the women who propagate this type of theory have zero kids. I don't care how suppressed you make everybody else's fertility. If you have zero kids, it's not an evolutionarily. It's not going to help you evolutionarily. I have a crack my screen. I do. Shoot. Second, I don't think there's any any evidence that women are being motivated by evolution right now. At all. At least as far as having kids goes. Three, you won't be introducing foreign populations of high fertility groups if you're motivated by mate suppression, because that kind of destroys the purpose of mate suppression, which is to increase your relative fertility versus the average. If you're inviting a bunch of people from other places to come to your land, that's not exactly fulfilling mate suppression theories. Why is it popular if it's obviously... Well, I think it's kind of obviously wrong. Like, it's obviously a thing that can happen. I don't think it explains anything in the current age, though. I think people always want to people always want to give a pseudoscientific backing for the things they already think. And you basically, on the right, you have a lot of people who believe in evolutionary psychology. And they want to have more ammo, basically, to use against the forces on what they would construe as the feminist forces that motivate people. I just don't think this one's accurate. I mean, there's a lot to be gained from evolutionary psychology and the thinking or evolutionarily comparing cultures, groups, so on and so forth. There's a lot to be said for that. In this case, it doesn't apply, though. It just doesn't. There are other mechanisms that are much better predictors of the current state of things. So yeah, I mean, it's a good idea. And in general, like, every single thing is motivating people to have less kids than they would otherwise. It's not, Scott Adams said, it's not one thing, it's everything. But this mate suppression theory doesn't pass muster. It just doesn't. It's a good idea. It's an attempt to think scientifically, but if you just reason it out for a little bit, it doesn't work. I think it's actually a better theory if you had the mate suppression theory for guys, where you have these guys who have a million kids talking about how terrible the dating market is, motivating other men to exit the dating market and make it easier for them. That's actually a much better theory. The mate suppression theory for males. And I do see that. I think a lot of, like, I think there's good things in the red pill But I think a lot of it's just telling people not to compete and just to give up. And that's not helpful to anybody. Works though. Okay, next topic is going to be tea. So this whole story is just entertaining as anything. So if you're not aware of what tea is, basically, from what I'm aware, there's an app on the App Store where basically women can take pictures, get drop names, drop phone numbers of different guys that they've been on dates with, and basically make it public knowledge so that other women can look up these guys and be like, oh, I'm going on a date with this person. Should I go on the date or not? Is he? And there are some good uses. Like, let's give credit where credit's due. If there's a way for women to find out if the guy is a felon, that's probably a good thing. Or if a guy is um, a predator of some kind, or just a douche. I can see there being benefits. Of course, on the other side of things, men are like, well, how can there be a data platform which has my data that I can't access it? Because that's the thing. T does not allow men on, which is sexist. Obviously sexist, and also like goes against a lot of privacy rules about allowing things, people's personal information to be released online so people can look you up without you knowing it. You should own the information regarding yourself. I should own my image. I should own my persona in the world. Now, that is all really, really funny. My opinion is that screw them. Guys who are negatively affected by this, let's face it, the type of dating scenarios where this would apply would be mostly online dating. And about 10 to 20%, depending who you're asking, of men get most of the action on these dating sites. And like, I'm like the most average person appearance wise and everything you could possibly find. I'm a very stats wise, at least on the dating apps, average. I get no dates. I've sent out probably 200 messages over the past 300 messages over the past 6 months. And don't get me wrong, I do fine. I have female friends and stuff, and they're great, and that fulfills most of my need for female companionship. But I'm just average. I don't get anywhere. So that means, and I do know, like from soccer and stuff, I've met guys who get a lot of action. So it does seem like, just anecdotally, that the stats that 10 to 20% of men on dating apps get most of the attention makes sense. It kind of adds up. So if these guys get like doxxed or outed or get their reputation ruined from being bad dates, I don't care. It doesn't affect most guys that this kind of app is out there. Most guys aren't affected because most guys aren't getting anywhere with these in this type of scenario. And also, these guys they enjoy harems. Let's just call it what it is. And instead of like with their meeting somebody, getting married, and then producing offspring, producing a bunch of kids for the next generation, they're basically playing the field a lot and just dating woman after woman after woman after woman, and giving men as a whole a bad reputation because these men do have so many options that they can treat women like crap. And if somebody does have the power to treat people badly, a lot of them will. And I'm not saying all top guys are like this. Obviously, a lot of good guys get married and have kids and all that kind of stuff. And maybe they fool around a bit for a few years in their 20s, whatever, but then they settle down. This doesn't affect them because they're already out of the dating pool. Who it affects are the players who just go through people like they're tissue paper. So screw 'em. I mean, you reap the consequences of your actions. I feel like women tend to say all men, which is stupid, and men tend to say, oh, it's a woman's fault. No, you got to give blame to these Chads and Chad and Tyrone deserve blame for the chaos they wrought. They leak they back on the dating ecosystem. They deserve blame. Like, stop defending the agitation. They don't deserve it, and frankly, they are well compensated for their national people. They're well compensated, so screw them. However, it is funny that it got hacked immediately, and all of the apparently this app got hacked, and all the information of the women on the app who were being photo verified and ID verified to be women because they weren't allowing men into the app, that got released. And they're exactly who you'd expect, which is funny as hell. Um, so you got a bunch of unhappy people making each other unhappy. I cannot be unhappy about this whole scenario. It is really, really funny. It is funny as hell. Maybe they can all be outed to each other. Maybe regular people, men and women, can get together. Is that such a crazy idea? So yeah, I think it's an interesting thing. There's probably more of it, and I'm not altogether convinced it's a bad thing. I mean, there should be consequences if you're a bad guy. There are bad guys, and not even bad guys, but just guys who treat women like they're disposable. Um, which is one of the reasons the anonymity of these Chads and Tyrones or whatever is what allows them to be so successful. Women don't want they want the top guy, but they don't want the top guy to be treating them like they're disposable, usually. So yeah, if this hurts the top guys who are being outed, fine. I don't know. I don't really know why conservatives are taking the side against this app. This app seems like a good idea. Now, it's not going to be because every single one of these new apps ends up being a bad thing. But right now, I'm like, okay, these guys who play around a lot get outed. Good, screw them. So the right and the right. So I have a theory that I've noticed that there are parts of the right wing that are turning against laissez-faire capitalism. I've noticed this. If you laissez-faire capitalism, I've noticed this. If you watch the Voters Eaters, they've been harping on this for a while. People like Michael Knowles have been harping on it, and the new edition is I was watching Nick Frida's has been harping on it, saying that basically, if you look at they phrase it in terms of globalism, but if you look at who succeeds and who doesn't succeed, and who succeeded and didn't succeed over the past 40 years, it's pretty clear that liberals that not liberals progressives have a point. If you look at the average wages of people versus gold or versus the money supply or versus the GDP as a whole, it's plummeted over the past 30 years. And some of that's capitalism, some of that's immigration, some of that's globalization. But the right is kind of right now slowly moving to the position that it's the economic system that we have, which makes sense. Stupid fly. It's a good move. It's a very, very good move. But what's frustrating is that, like, obviously, this right wing movement we have right now is obviously moving in the right direction with regards to economics because corporations are not your friend. Capital is not necessarily the best way of distributing resources. It's a way, it's better than socialism, it's better than communism, but that doesn't mean it's good. Like regulating Wall Street a bit more. Why not? It's not like they're investing in things that make our lives better. Yes, I know I'm doing this on a computer, but like, is that motivated by money or is that motivated by people by nerds wanting to do cool stuff? Is money always the motivating factor? I feel like a lot of modern capitalism is just a distributing money to people who already have it. Like that guy who was at the Coldplay concert. I'm not going to judge his personal situation, but did he look like some god tier master of the universe genius guy? No, he's a guy who's good at being a scumbag. That's what he's good at. And I do think there are capitalists that making good impact in the world, like Trump, built a lot of cool buildings. Musk just did a lot of cool stuff. I'm not bashing all billionaires, but the critique of the capitalist system is a viable one, and it's spreading on the right. If I was Wall Street, I'd be very, very careful right now. Very, very careful because you don't have the left and you don't have the right who exactly is going to be defending? The only people you really have are the elite politicians and the corporate people. So you have the leadership of society. Great, well done. That's not going to stop the mob from coming for you. No, I don't want it to. Mind you, I don't. This is all going to happen organically. Um, but it's interesting. It's very, very interesting. That's why I think it's very much a waste of time when people who like Tucker Carlson or Candace Owens go after this conservative movement because they're anti-Semitic jerks. Um, and they're just really wasting everybody's time. And this progresses as it's progressing now. We're going to have two right-wing parties that are vying for success. A right-wing populist party that is more economically liberal, and a right-wing libertarian party which is more libertarian. That's a good thing. Don't get in the way. And meanwhile, the left, honestly, it's gonna be three. It's gonna be. I feel like in a lot of situations, you end up in a three race situation. I don't mean like ethnicities. I mean like StarCraft, where you have like Protoss, Terran, and Zerg. I feel like that's really, really common as far as how people break down. And it's interesting, like even more, like with the way how diverse our political tribes are getting, we're almost getting to the situation where you could probably like create an RPG based off of different types. Like the Karen, the Karen type, or the Chad type, a Chad bot, or you could do something with that. Anyway, that's all I got. Cheers and see you later.